Good evening, everyone. My name's Ben, and I'm from the Australian Anti-Ice Campaign. And this is the weekly talkback show, Let's Talk About Ice. It's a weekly show, as I said, on Facebook that deals predominantly with ice addiction. Here you have the opportunity to listen to guest speakers, share their lived experience of ice addiction in the hope that sharing can help others. The various guest speakers come from all walks of life, which shows ice addiction can happen to all types of people. Our target audience are people in active addiction or recovery, as well as family members or friends that are looking for support and advice for a loved one who is affected by ice addiction. Throughout the show, we will feature numbers of websites for those seeking further assistance, as well as answering any questions you may have that can be sent by the show's commentary. We want people to know that there is help available and that there is life after ice addiction. Before I introduce our guests, I'll go through a couple of numbers that you can use to reach out on. So this is for anyone that's in ice addiction or who has a loved one and wants to get some advice on where they can get that help. So we've got the 1-800 No to Ice hotline, which is 1-800 668 423. Of course, we've got the family support number 0481 844 555. We've got the Australian Anti-Ice Campaign head office, which is 0756656063. And of course, we've got the AAIC op shop, which is 130 Scarborough Street, Southport, up at the Gold Coast. So, yeah, we'll put those numbers up as we go throughout the show. And yeah, like I say, if you want or you feel you need to get some advice, reach out. So this evening we have Josh. We're bringing into the hot seat. Welcome, Josh. Yeah, I'll open it up to you. You can tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into some questions, and we might back it up a bit and go into a bit more detail. So I'll hand it over to you, Josh. Welcome, mate.
Too easy. Cheers, Ben. Hey, everyone. Yeah. I'm Josh. I'll start at a bit from the beginning. Like when I was younger, I was 8 years old and I was taken from my parents, so I got put into ward of the state, and I spent 3 years in there. And while I was in there, I went through things, you know what I mean, unspeakable type things that I don't like to really talk about, but you can use your imagination. I went through it. And then when I got home, I was 11 years old, and I just didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. So I didn't feel like anyone wanted me, or I didn't feel like I just, didn't belong. So from there, I found a sense of belonging through the use of drugs. And mainly, first I began with marijuana, then moved on to speed, then from speed to ice. And I've done that for 24 years of my life. And throughout active addiction, I went through more troubles. I lost friends through overdoses. I lost loved ones from me not being faithful and lying and cheating and stealing and stuff. And I had that much bad go on in my life that I never thought there was a way back. I never thought there was anything better for me out there except for what I was already doing. So I kind of come to terms with myself that this is me. I'm Josh, the drug addict, and I'll be a drug addict forever. And it wasn't until I got to about my first stint in rehab was at 32 years old or something. So I've been using for 22 years or so of my life, went to rehab, and I got introduced to there may be something else different out there for me. But that's not where it ended for me. I went into rehab for the first time. I got out of rehab and I hooked straight back in, thinking that I was better than this and I can keep going and doing what I was doing. And once I got introduced to a life without drugs, using drugs was no longer the same, and it never was again, because I now knew that what I was throwing away, and it was me that was doing it. And because for a long time through active addiction, I always blamed others. And after coming into recovery, I started taking ownership for my own mistakes and my own doings. And while I was back in active addiction after being in rehab, I lost everything again. Everything I gained from going to rehab, I started losing all over again. I lost a job. I became homeless. I went and done a quick stint in jail. And after doing all them things, it was like a light bulb type moment. It was like, I don't want this anymore. You hear it a lot in recovery and in the rooms of NA and stuff. People say they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's exactly what I was. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so I rang up the rehab in Coffs Harbour and I signed myself back in. And I was lucky enough that they gave me a bed pretty much straight away. And I started recovery all over again. And this time around, though, I went in a clear page, you know what I mean? Like starting all over again. So everything that was suggested to me, I tried. And these are things that I never ever thought I'd ever try in my life. Like I started doing yoga. I got reintroduced to my faith. So I started doing things with the church up there in Coffs Harbour. I started working out in the gym. Just all these little things, started praying, started meditating. All these things that I thought I was incapable of doing, I started doing it. And the more I kept that open mind and that willingness to try things, the more my brainwave, like the way I thought, started changing. I started thinking, wow, this is this life that I'm experimenting with, so to say, it's way better than the life that I've left behind. Excuse me. And so I just kept doing it. I just kept trying things new. And then I went to a men's retreat, and this was in Evans Head, and I was there with like 100 or so other blokes, and I was watching them and how they all congregated with each other, and they all hugged each other and loved each other and applauded each other for their recovery. And that was when I fully went, this is what I want. I want to be able to get with people without the use of drugs and be on the same level and live like a normal person, so to say. And so that's what I did. I immersed myself in NA. I immersed myself with the church, and even though I'm not in Coffs Harbour anymore, I still have a lot to do with the church here in my hometown. And I heard in one of the meetings that if you surround yourself with recovery, then you got more chances of getting it. So that's what I did. I surrounded myself with good people with good intentions. And I still do have my friends, and I even have family members that are still in active addiction. But if they don't respect my recovery or support my recovery, as in don't use around me or bring drugs around me, then they don't have time in my life anymore. That's just plain and simple. They've got to be in my lane and respect what I'm doing to gain any time or energy out of me these days. And so now I'm at home. I've got myself a little pad for myself. I've got me and my two boys, my two kids. I'm a single parent. That's the sole carer of both kids. So I have them 100% of the time. And life's going pretty sweet. I still have contact with some people from the rehab. and we do aftercare programs, and I still do meetings every single night of the week, and I do services in them in those meetings. I host sometimes in the Maroubra meeting, and other than that, life's going pretty well. So considering from the troubles I went through as a child to the confusion I went through as a teen, and then the mistakes I made as an adult, I never thought I'd be here where I am today. I never thought I'd be in jail, or I never thought I'd be alive. And I definitely didn't think I'd have my kids with me. So the improvement I've gotten out of pretty much just giving the suggested things a go when things have been told to me, and being able to move on and reaching out using those phone numbers that you mentioned at the start, and asking for help, because there are people out there that genuinely care and genuinely want to defeat this drug, ice, because it's a very powerful drug. It can destroy people, and I've seen it. I witnessed it firsthand, and it almost destroyed me. I was defeated, but it wasn't the end, and I decided to fight back. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without the support that I got. I think one of the other biggest things I did was, like, I know a lot of people don't believe in the God word, and they shy away from it, but I handed myself over to the care of God, and I got baptized. And when I got baptized that day, I left the old me in the ocean, and the new me arose, and I've never looked back from then. So yeah, that's pretty much my story. To keep it brief, I could go into more details, but it'd be a very, very long episode. So I think I'll just leave it there.
I appreciate your honesty and your openness, mate. And I think I was there for your baptism.
Yeah, mate, yeah, we got baptized together.
Yeah,
mate, we got baptized together. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I think I went under again. There's a couple of times I've been baptized, but I like to get amongst it and keep keep in the center of it all. But and that's a great story. Because now you've got your children, and you've come to that realization. So and it's always great to see blokes. They come to the rehab, and then they go away, and they continue on strong in their walks. And so I'm looking forward to this interview and hearing from you. What I want to do now at the moment, I want to back it up a bit. So you mentioned that your first introduction to drugs was marijuana. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, so that how old you were and how that all came about?
Well, I was 11 years old when I first picked up the bong and started smoking marijuana, and I think that just gave me that, because I never felt like I belonged anywhere. Because coming out of the boys' homes, because I didn't get put into foster care enough, and I went to an all boys school, and I was there for 3.5 years. And while I was in that school, I was only from 8 years old to 11 years old, and people don't really realize that in those schools that I'm that small, and I had kids in there that were 18, 19 years old, and they were smoking and they were doing stuff in there, but I was still too young, and I turned to the care that I was given in there. I turned to that, and even that backfired on me. So when I got out, I just wanted to find that I don't know, that circle of people that I belonged in, and I found that through marijuana. So I started hitting that, and hitting it hard at 11 years old. But it didn't take long for me to move on to the next fix.
So, but I guess the stepping stone from that would be to drinking that would come with the dope smoking, and then I guess later on the harder drugs such as your ice use and that.
Yeah. Well, I moved from marijuana and drinking to speed and ice by, gosh, I would have been 12 turning 13, and at 13 I had a needle in my arm. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's quite young, and it's younger than I was. I was about 15, 16. But same similar story. There was the marijuana, and it was introduced to me by people I know as well.
mm,
People that you trust, and when you reflect on it, you look back and you think, well, how much did they know about it? For them to
yeah,
be able
that's
to
right.
tell you that it's all right, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
and then you consider some of them people back then that you were hanging around and using with, and that give you that reassurance. And I can unfortunately say that some of them people aren't around anymore, or they're in a very dark place.
yeah, that's
Um,
exactly right.
but your ice use. So would it be fair to say it was like later teens, early 20s, that sort of thing? That's when it's first sort of begun. Because I remember ice wasn't around, and I think you're about the same age as
Yeah,
me, aren't you, Josh? How old are
yeah,
you?
yeah. I'm 38.
38. So I'm 42. So yeah, it would have been your early 20s when the ice, and 25 when the ice started, and before that was the speed, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, tell me, how long had you used ice for?
I think I tried it first when I was about 22, 23,
Yeah,
and that was first I started smoking it at first, and
right.
then after that I couldn't get that. I was watching other people that were using the needle, and I was chasing that effect that they were getting.
Yeah,
So by 23, 24, I was whacking it in my veins, and yeah, I
yeah,
just after then everything just went from having all the opportunities in the world. Like I had done
yeah.
2 years in the military and everything, so I
Right.
could have went I could have went anywhere, but it just disappeared. I had
Yeah,
no more cares in the world. Was the only care I had was getting more ice.
yeah.
Yeah,
So, so, so were you, when you started using the heavier drugs, were you in the military at that time?
yeah, I was. I blew my quadricep in my right leg, and I had to get it removed. And
Right,
I was put in a leg brace for 6.5 months. So I was pretty much
right.
bedridden for 3 months of those 6 months, and then that's when I just started hitting everything I could.
Yeah,
Uh, then I just gave up on the army.
yeah. Okay. And were you able to go on to other jobs after that, or was it
Uh,
sort of like bit of work here, bit of work there?
yeah, I tried numerous things, but in the end, the only thing that mattered was my drugs.
Yeah,
Like the only reason I ever worked was to get money to get more drugs. And then
yeah.
that's when I found out that the best way to get more money to get more drugs is to sell the drug itself. So I turned to that.
So you become a dealer,
Yeah.
and so tell us, for those people that don't understand, what sort of a lifestyle is that? Like, what can you expect if being a drug dealer?
Well, when I was in active addiction, being a drug dealer, I I liked it. You know what I mean? Like I won't lie, I was so used to chaos in my life. The constant chaos that come with being a drug dealer was what I
Mm,
was. I was almost addicted to that as much as I was the drug
yeah,
and
yeah,
that lifestyle. But now with a clear mind, when I look back at all the shit that I had to go through, or sorry for swearing, all the stuff that I had to go through, it's just it wasn't worth it. You know what I mean? Like
mm,
I lost my kids; they got taken off of me. Um, I lost my partner that I was with for like 17 years.
right,
I, yeah, I lost my mum and dad after getting them back from the boys' homes. They pretty much turned their back on me as well because I was on that hope, and
yeah.
I thought I was everything and anything that could be. I thought I was that, but I enjoyed
So
having money. Oh, sorry, I enjoyed having money. I enjoyed having the fast life, but I lost it all,
yeah,
and yeah, and I lost it all more than once. I'd lose it all, then I'd bounce back, then I'd lose it all again, and
yeah.
it's that saying that the meaning, whatever it is, of insanity. You know what I mean? I do the same things expecting different results, and I never ever got that different result.
Yeah. Let's talk about those relationships that you know in ice addiction. Your personal relationships, such as your family, your partner, and your children. How does ice affect those relationships, and what can people who don't know about the drug ice, or others out there that are probably going through something similar or have been through something similar, just elaborate a bit on what how it affects relationships.
Well, for me, once I was fully addicted, nothing else mattered, not even my kids, and that hurts me
Yeah,
to say that, but everything comes second best, and everyone and everything was an object.
yeah,
I'd only ever had people around me ever benefited me and to get what I wanted out of them, and then that's even my family and my kids. But my kids,
yeah,
when I was in active addiction, I'd love to say my kids meant the world to me, and they were like any parent would, but my kids come second best. It was the
yeah,
drug that I chased first, so that's that relationship crumbled with my children, and then same as my mother and father. I'd only ever be around them if I could lie to them to get something out of them. If I
yeah,
can't lie to them, I'd steal from them, and
yeah,
I'd abuse them and take advantage of everyone, and everyone and everything was an object to me, and it was just a means to get more.
yeah.
Uh,
So, it's fair to say that um, it's a selfish drug, isn't it?
oh yeah, for
And
sure.
some people may not understand that. Like, I do believe that people who are ice addicts and their parents as well. I do believe they love their kids, but when you're in that cycle, it's not a matter of it becomes, yes, it's still a choice, but when you're addicted to a drug such as ice, just to get through your day, you need that fix,
Yeah,
and it's always I'll deal with the problem after I get that fix. You know what I mean? I just get through this day, and of course it never happens. So like it becomes very self-centered addiction.
yeah.
An ice addict does. Um, let's just talk about your emotions, and then we'll talk about your rock bottoms. But what emotions did you experience during your active addiction?
I think for me, the biggest one was just constant confusion,
Yeah,
like never knowing what could have, like always questioning what could have been, or
yeah,
why this happened to me, and playing the victim, and
yeah,
that left me hurt for a very long time. Like,
yeah,
I'd always, if I wasn't hurt, the only time I wasn't hurt was when I was using, and then
yeah,
that's because the drug was blocking out the fact that I was hurting myself. And
mm,
so I think I was left feeling, yeah, confusion would have been the biggest one. Never knowing whether I belong somewhere, and wearing a bag full of masks that I had to carry around with me every single day, because I'd have to change my mask to fit in with this person or to
yeah,
talk to them people, and just living a lie, pretty much constant lie.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's quite interesting that you mentioned those different characters you have to play throughout, especially being a drug dealer. You can go from the partner to the parent to you're dealing with the public who the drug users, and yeah, so it is quite interesting. And of course your body's pumped full of this drug. You
mm.
don't know if you're coming or going. You don't know if you're Arthur or Martha. It's
Yeah, that's exactly right.
it's like that. So I can relate completely with what you've said. Now,
And I
what I'm
wasn't
going to
I
do?
wasn't that
Sorry.
I wasn't that drug addict that tried to hide it either. I was that
Yeah.
proud drug addict. You know what I mean? So like, I, I'd embarrass my kids because I'd rock up the things off my face. I'd embarrass my
Right.
family, yeah, because I just didn't care. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fire out some numbers, and as I mentioned at the beginning of this at the beginning of the interview, these are numbers that those of you that can reach out and get that help. You may have a loved one, and this is how I came to know the Australian Anti-Ice campaign. I seen an article in the paper, and so I was able to jump on. So this is why we put this out here, in the hope that anyone who needs that help can sort it, because there is life after addiction. So we've got the 1800 No to Ice, which is 1800 668 423. We've got the family support number, which is 0481 844 555. That's a great one for single parents, I think, also, because there's a lot of single parents out there who you know, to get off that drug ice, they're going to need some care and they're going to need some help. And, you know, I see it all too often, you know, single parents, I think that they struggle the most, because it's hard enough focusing on yourself. If you've got other people or children dependent on you, you know, it must be just as, you know, a lot harder than just doing it yourself. So that family support number is a good one. So it's 0481 844 555. Of course, we've got the Australian Anti-Ice head office, which is 0756 65 6063. And we've got the Australian Anti-Ice campaign op shop, which is at 130 Scarborough Street, Southport. Josh, in your addiction days, did you ever experience psychosis from this drug?
I was kind of lucky with that. Like, I did experience a bit of depression and stuff, but because I was a drug dealer, it didn't hit me that much. You know what I mean? Because I always had my fix there.
Yeah.
But coming into recovery, I think the main thing that I lost was my motivation. Like, I couldn't, or I didn't want to. I didn't want to do anything because I didn't think there was any other way of doing it. So so I had to get put on medication to get me through my day to day. But it wasn't antidepressants or anything. It was motivation tablets, I think, called Sertraline, and that just gave me that pep to get me through the day. So yeah.
Right. And so, did you find that they helped you?
Yeah, it did for a little while, and then I started finding that as an addict, my brain tells me that if this is working at the beginning of the day, then why not take some in the middle of the day, or even at the end of the day? So I was still chasing more, and so I started increasing my doses, and then
right, self-medicating.
And I told my doctor about that, and he just said, "Well, look, mate, maybe you should," because I was on it for about a year. And he said, "Well, maybe it's time to get rid of them and just see how you go." And once I did, I kind of pretty much didn't look back, really, just kept soldiering on. Yeah.
So while you're on these prescription drugs, you're also using ice at the time, was it?
At the beginning I was, yeah. But then because I got put on them about probably 3 months before I went to rehab. So I was on them and ice at the beginning. And then once I went to rehab, there was no ice involved, just the prescription drugs. Yeah.
Right. And you know, that might be the case that some people need. They need to go and speak to their GP about if they need to be medicated. Me, myself, I took take an antidepressant that helps me at night, that helps me sleep. So that's just a matter of going, talking to your GP, be upfront and honest, and then they can help you out there. With regards to the law, did you have any run-ins with the law at all in your addiction days?
All the time, and like I said, I'm 38 years old, and I only just got my P's license this year. Like, so yeah, I had so many. I was a repeat. What is it? I can't remember the word for it, but yeah, I was a repeat offender for driving unlicensed, and that's with my kids in the car under the influence of drugs and alcohol. and numerous raids, like, because I was dealing drugs at the same time,
Yep.
and all these raids, they finally ended up catching up with me, and they ended up getting me, and ended up doing only a small stint in jail. I was in there for 3.5 months, and
Right.
before I got bail. But every one of those raids, my kids were present, and
Right.
now that I look back at it and I watch the way that my kids act around the police now, they have a
Yeah.
hatred for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my actions did take effect on my kids, and
Yeah.
yeah, so which was pretty which was pretty bad. Yeah.
So you said, well, let's just go back a bit. When did this trouble with the police really start? Was it at the beginning of your use, or more towards your dealing days?
More towards my dealing days.
Yeah.
When I was just an addict, yeah, I had just minor offences. You know what I mean? Driving unlicensed here and there.
Yeah.
But when I got to about 28, 29, and I was fully in the midst of dealing, that's when they started trying to crack down on me, you know what I mean, trying to catch me out.
Right.
And that went on for like, man, it would have been 9 years straight of every year at least getting 5 to 6 raids a year, and big raids too, you know what I mean, come in and destroy my house, and I'd have to start again.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So your rock bottom, you know, when was your rock bottom? Was it in jail, or was it, you know, during these raids, or in jail?
It wasn't until I went to jail when I was getting raided, because they never caught me with anything half the time. I thought I was smarter, you know what I mean? I thought, yeah, I've got these fellas. But when I finally went to jail, like, I can honestly say, for me, jail is not for me. I did not like it one bit.
Yep.
And like, nothing happened to me in there or anything. I just didn't like it.
Yep.
I hated having all these eyes on me and being told what and when I can do things. I hated that.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much my rock bottom. And it was on one of the visits while I was in jail. My kids come to visit me, and they see me in these overalls with a little padlock on my back. And and my youngest fellow, he was only 6 at the time, he just started crying. And he made me start crying, and I thought, wow, I can't put my kids through this.
Yeah. So yeah, it would have been quite a difficult situation, I imagine. And so you did your 3.5 months, was it?
Yeah.
After that, what happened after that?
After that, I got bail.
Yep.
And then I got out, and I don't know why, but I turned straight back to the ice.
Yeah.
And it was like, all right, I've gotten out of jail. I've done my stint. Now it's time to celebrate. I don't know why my brain told me to do that, but I thought it was a good idea. So I got out of jail at, I would have been 83 kilos, and within 2.5 to 3 months again, I was down to 54 kilos. I was a bag of bones. Yeah, I had half my face rotted off, and
and
I was just a straight mess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is what people need to know about this drug. This is what it'll do to you. I mean, you've gone from being in jail and not liking it, and then you've come out of it, and you're straight back into doing what put you in there in the first place. And this is the power of this drug. People probably try and understand who've never been in an addiction with ice, and try and understand why would you do that, but for whatever reason, this is the power of that drug. People, and this is why it's so hard to kick that habit. So you've gone back into your ice using. Did you go back dealing at all?
Yeah, went straight back into that. I started dealing before I started taking the ice again, and thinking, oh, more money. You know what I mean? If I'm not touching it, then I just sell it all and I make more money. Yeah. And that lasted probably 7 days.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That was short-lived.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So, you obviously there's come a point where you've said enough's enough. Let's talk about that. When did you sort of have that light bulb moment, or that did it occur to you that I need to do something about this? When was that?
That was probably about 2.5 years ago now.
Yep.
I was still dealing, and I had a bunch of fellas running on me. They tried to rob me,
Right.
and during that robbery, they pointed a shotgun at me, and they squeezed the trigger, but the gun jammed. And
Wow.
and my kids were in the corner with me.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
so they were going to blast me and whoever else got hit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that was the scariest time I think I've ever experienced in my life. And
Yep.
I've gone through overdoses and all, but that at that moment, I don't know how they say you see your whole life flash before your eyes. I didn't see my
Yeah.
life flash before my eyes. I saw my kids' lives ending, and it scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And when they left, they said to me, you shouldn't be a dealer if you don't want this kind of shit to happen to you. So
Yeah.
so in a weird way, I took their advice.
Yeah. There's a
Yeah,
truth in what they're saying, but isn't there?
yeah, there is. Like, it comes with the
Yeah.
game, you know what I mean? If you play
Yeah.
the game, you're either going to end up, like they say, death, institutionalized, or jail.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I done the jail, I done the institutional, and I did not want to meet that death. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And I can tell what you're saying is true, because I've had similar situations. I have had a gun put at my head. The trigger wasn't pulled, but I had the gun put at me. And you know, you do. I've seen, this didn't happen to me, but I've seen blokes piss their pants. That's happened to. But it is true. If you know, you shouldn't be in this game if you're not expecting that. And you know, I've done some heinous things to people too. I've actually put guns at people's heads and bashed them. You know, even when people owed me money, I'd go and take everything, and you know, people would ask, "Oh, do you have any guilt for that?" Or you know, that's a person's and family, and that's his house. And I think to myself, well, he should have thought about that before he didn't pay up his debt or whatever. That's how I justified it. But the truth of the matter is, it's just a cold reason to take everyone's belongings. But the truth of the matter is, the people that I owe, what do I say to them? They don't care about no sob story. You know, they're like, yeah, nice story. So where's the
yeah,
money? You know,
yeah, that's
and that's
right.
the truth of it. And people that are innocent, they suffer. You know, because of that. So you know, and this is what people can expect using this drug. Just while we've got a sec, I'm gonna put these numbers back out again. 1-800 no to ice. So it's 1-800-668-6423. So this is for people who have maybe in active addiction, or have a loved one who want to seek that advice and reach out and get that help. Of course, I've got the family support number 0481 844 555. The AAIC head office, which is 0756 656063. And of course, I've got the Australian Anti-Ice campaign op shop at 130 Scarborough Street, Southport. Now, we've already touched on it a little bit, but tell us, you know, what you've lost because of this drug, and if you know, you might have had to lose something and regained it later on down the track. But tell us what you've lost over the course of time because of ice addiction.
Yeah, well, because of my addiction, I've I've lost everything and anything you can imagine. Really, I lost. First, I lost my kids, and I lost my
Yeah,
family and my friends. Um, I've had close friends that I grew up with that I introduced to the drug.
right.
I've lost them. You know, what I mean, they've died of suicides and
Yeah,
overdoses, and I've lost. Gosh, I don't know how many jobs I've lost. I lost my military career.
yeah,
I used to play sport when I was younger. I gave up on all that, and I pretty much gave up on all hope in life, and most of all, I lost myself. Like that,
Yeah.
how I said I didn't have that sense of belonging, and I didn't know who I was. I
Yeah.
think I didn't know who I was because I didn't I didn't put in the work to find out who I am.
Yeah.
So because I ran away from myself for so long, I ran away from responsibilities,
Yeah.
and the only responsibility I had was getting more ice and taking more and supplying more, because by supplying it, it gave me means to get more. So
Yeah.
that was the only responsibility I had, and it's like even now that I'm clean, I still lose stuff. It's just that now when I lose it, I am able to take the right steps to either regain it,
Yeah.
or I can accept things for what they are, and I can accept my ownership. Just because the drug's gone doesn't mean life's all roses.
Yeah.
It still has its hard times, but
Yeah.
that's life. You know what I mean? Life's always going to have those curveballs. But
Mm.
these days, instead of just clouding myself with drugs and hiding from the world, I now face them. And yeah,
Mm. Yeah. Um, and where you learnt this, would it be fair to say in the rehab and in the NA rooms, did they help you to deal with these problems that arise in life?
yeah. I think the biggest one would have been in the rehab. Like I was at Adele House,
Yeah.
and my caseworker there, he was I don't know if you know him or not, Aaron.
Yeah,
He
I've met
was
Aaron.
yeah, Aaron. He's a real weird and has an unorthodox approach to addiction, but he just opened my mind to living life a different way type thing. And and but in saying that, if I wasn't ready to quit at the time I was, then I wouldn't have, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when I first went into the rehab, I I was that massive people pleaser, and
Yeah.
I had people asking me for things and to bring things in with me, and I wanted to do it, but I surrounded myself with a few of the boys that they wanted recovery. You know what I mean? You've got to want it to get it.
Mm. Mm.
So but the biggest thing was that I finally, the first step of NA is surrender. You know what I mean? And when I fully surrendered, then I was no longer afraid to ask for help. And once I
Mm.
did ask for that help, everything started changing. Uh,
I remember that it would have been around the first when you first come to rehab, and I think that symbol of a surrender. And I was thinking about the other day, and you come up to the front of the church at one of the Sunday meetings, and you drop down on your knees, and I think that was that you, Josh. Do I
yeah,
remember
yeah,
correctly? Yeah, I thought it
yeah,
was. And I was thinking, I thought that bloke's got a chance, of overcoming that, because it's so important. It's the first tradition in the NA rooms is surrendering that will,
yeah,
because we've lived our wills and our way, and this is how far it got us, and this is where it got us. So, it's interesting to hear you talk about that. I'm quite interested in about the rehab, because my parents wanted to my mother wanted to put me in the rehab, and I always thought, no, I didn't, and I still don't. I've never done it, but you know. I see the results of the rehab, and you see blokes, they come in as broken people, and they're defeated. And the ones that want to get clean, as you mentioned, you've got to want it. They're able to, within two, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, they're starting to, pick up a bit. And, within 3 to 4 months, they've put on a bit of weight. There's a spring in their step. They've got a bit of, happiness and joy back in their lives. And it's such a wonderful thing to see that. So, uh, as you mentioned, I think if anyone's listening to this message and, rehab is an option for you, to give it a go. You mentioned you put yourself into rehab. That was an
yeah,
option.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
And so,
I went to detox first, and then while I was detoxing, I rang up Matty Miller at Adele House,
yep,
and because I've known Matty pretty much my whole life. We've come from the
yep,
same hometown, and I rang him up and I just said, "Look, man, I need help," and he just said to me, he said, "As soon as you get out detox, come out to Adele House," and that's where I went. And
yeah,
the good thing about Adele House is that when I first got there, I didn't really like it because I didn't have much program. But
yep,
the longer I stayed there, I started realizing that it's up to you
yeah,
whether you want to create a program. And
yep,
if you don't want to create a program, you're just going to fall through the cracks and go back to where you're
that's
going.
right.
So yeah, so I created that program for myself. And as I was doing it, other boys that were in there see me doing it, so they started following suit.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, it was good. Uh,
And, and now look at you. You're how long you clean now, Josh?
I am almost 17 months.
Yeah, well done. And that's a big thing for any ice addict. To be clean for a day is a big thing, but that's 17 months. You've got your kids back.
Yep.
You
Yeah,
got
got
your
my
kids
kids
back,
back.
and so
Yeah, got
that's
me.
all. That's all from working the program, wanting to overcome ice addiction. It's a great testimony. There is life after ice addiction. Um, and the story that you've shared, it's pretty intense. You've had a lot of traumas throughout your life, especially when you're younger. You went on to be a heavy user, an addict, a dealer. I mean, and then you've done time in jail. You lost your kids, and now look at you. People may think you can never come back from that, but you can, can't you? And your
Yeah,
testimony speaks it.
yeah, 100%. Like, I thought that there was no other life for me. Like, I got to that point where I believe you got your winners and your losers in life, and that's all there is. And I must have been one of those losers. But that again, that was my mind thinking. You know what I mean? That
Yep.
was me. That was me controlling my own will and trying to accept the fact that I'm just going to be a bad person. I'm going to have a
Mm,
bad life. But
mm.
it isn't until I waved that white flag, completely surrendered, opened my mind and my heart up to the care of, in NA they call it the care of a higher power. For me, it was the care of God, and
Yep.
and the more I turned to Him, and the more I surrendered myself to Him, I was no longer alone. And by no longer being alone, it gave me power and strength to continue, even in those dark times when I do feel alone. I've got someone to
Yeah.
turn to now.
Yeah.
So
That's exactly right. That's great. So, where do you see yourself in about 5 or 10 years' time, mate?
hopefully still hopefully still doing what I'm doing. That's
Yep.
but I'm not going to be that addict and say that I'm never ever going back to addiction, because that's not a reality. But
Yeah. Yeah.
relapse is a reality, but
Yeah.
it's not a requirement.
Yeah.
So I hope and I pray that I never do go back to it. But there's
Yeah.
always that possibility. But I hopefully would like to be working. I have my trade in wall and floor ceramic tiling,
Yeah.
and I'm doing the odd cashies now. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping that I can expand that, and I get to watch my kids finish up school. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's amazing. And look, we're towards the end of the show now. I think it was great to hear that you've got your kids back. That's a big one. You've been clean for 17 months. Despite all the ups and downs that you've gone through life because of ice addiction. I think it's a great story, and we'll continue to keep in touch. We might do a catch up. Story on you in 12 months' time, because we always like to see people succeeding, and we'll see where you're at. I'm going to hand it over to you to tell us one last thing you want the audience to know about ice addiction, and then we'll wrap it up. So, what's one more thing you want to say to people out there about ice addiction?
um, it's a very dangerous and baffling and cunning, and it's a very very dangerous drug. And for those that have picked it up, and are in the midst of addiction, don't be afraid. Like, there is always time to change. It's just up to you to make that change.
Yeah.
And reach out, ask people for help. Don't be scared. Like, even if you do get an answer that's no, don't be afraid of that answer. Just go to the next person and ask them for help instead. And it doesn't matter how long you've been using. As I said, I was using for 26 or 27 years. And if I can bounce back, then I know anyone pretty much can. You just got to put in the work, and it is hard work, but don't be afraid of it, because the rewards,
That's right.
like that, like having my kids in my own house, the rewards are there. You just got to fight for them.
Yeah. Look, good on you, mate. Thanks a lot, Josh. You've spoken openly and honestly. We appreciate it. We know people out there listening. They'll be able to relate to the story. Seek that help, guys that are listening. Get those numbers. They'll be on your screens. And thanks a lot, Josh. Like I said, we'll look to touch base with you in the future. And good luck with with everything to you and your family. And thank you very much for sharing your story, mate.
Sweet. Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Josh.